Let me go back to another point that was raised earlier. One of the earlier members, I believe it was Ms. Wasserman Schultz, said 90% of drugs captured are captured at ports of entry. And Mr. Higgins disagreed with that. But let's just assume for a second that Ms. Wasserman Schultz is right. Mr. McDaniel, does it surprise you that drugs are captured where there's actually law enforcement personnel?
No, sir. No surprise at all.
That's kind of common sense, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Like, wow, we're actually capturing drugs where there are law enforcement personnel at the ports of entry. But we're also capturing some where there aren't ports of entry, and my guess is, call me just some common sense guy from Western Ohio, my guess is a lot of drugs are moving across the border where there aren't any good guys to stop them, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And hence the reason we need a barrier, hence the reason we need some kind of border security wall to help with that situation, to deal with this crisis that's all over our country, as the Director points out. Would you agree with that, Mr. McDaniel?
I would agree with that.
It's just good common sense. So this argument that, oh, most of the drugs seized are at ports of entry, well, for goodness sakes, that's where we have law enforcement right there. Of course that's going to happen. But there is all kinds of bad stuff coming across where there aren't the good guys to stop the bad stuff. Mr. McDaniel, would you agree with all that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, to the point Mr. Higgins made, how much is actually seized, though, where there aren't ports of entry? We're still catching some of it, right? We're still getting some of it.
Yes, sir.
Is it more or less than what we're getting at the ports of entry?
More between the...
So between ports of entry, Democrats say, oh, we're only getting at the ports of entry. Said, well, of course we are. We're getting, because we got law enforcement there. But between the ports of entry, out where they can just cross and there aren't law enforcement personnel right there, we're still capturing some there at some points, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Is it more or less than what we're getting at the ports of entry?
There's no way to tell because the big unknown is what are we missing?
Yeah,
and
of course.
obviously, we're missing a lot.
Of course. Of course. Mr. Carroll, have anything to add to all that?
Yes, sir. I mean, obviously, I completely agree with Mr. McDaniel. In terms of if you just go by weight, and I mean, I can break it down by drug if you would like, but and the numbers that I have from Customs and Border Protection for 2018 reflects the total weight of drugs at ports of entry in 2018 was 432,000 pounds of various drugs. Between ports of entry for the same time frame, fiscal year 2018, 476,000
So actually
pounds.
more even.
In terms of total weight, I can break it down by drug if you want.
So here's my big question I want to ask for the other side. Because just a few weeks ago, that enough fentanyl was captured to kill 57 million Americans. You remember this story when this happened? Yeah, just a few weeks back, right?
Sir.
50. So if that's not an emergency, somebody tell me what is.